John Henry Newman was born in London on Saturday the 21st of February 1801, the first child of John and Jemima Newman. Newman's father was a banker, and the family lived in comfort, although they were certainly never wealthy. The Newman family was spiritually devout. Newman's mother's side of the family were Huguenot refugees who had fled to London to escape the oppression of France's Roman Catholic establishment. Later in life, Newman described his family's faith as
Bible religion, which consists mainly in having the Bible read in church, in family, and in private.
He had been raised a Protestant, and his Calvinistic theology stayed with him until he became a Fellow of Oriel College, Oxford, in 1822. The appointment of Newman to Oriel was considered unusual. He had performed poorly in his final exams, due in part to a breakdown brought on by overwork. By this time, Newman had decided to seek ordination in the Church of England. He was ordained on the 13th of June 1824 at the age of 23. That day he wrote in his journal,
"It is over. I am thine, O Lord. My heart shuddered within me. The words, forever, are so terrible. Yet, Lord, I ask not for comfort, but sanctification."
Whilst at Oriel, Newman became part of the early stages of the Oxford movement, which sought to recall the Church of England to its apostolic heritage and to the Catholic doctrines of the early Church Fathers. Newman's involvement in this transformed his once Calvinist faith. Newman was appointed vicar of the University Church of St. Mary the Virgin on the 28th of March 1828. Although it is 3 miles away, the University Church of St. Mary the Virgin was supposed to serve as Littlemore's parish church. Despite this distance, as their vicar, Newman believed it to be his duty to visit the people of Littlemore as often as he could, regularly walking the 6-mile round trip, although for a while he did have a horse called Klepper to help him. At that time, Littlemore was a tiny village with a shrinking population. It was a rotten place with poor housing, no school, and no church. Littlemore was caught between the boundaries of other parishes, and since it was so far from what was meant to be their parish church, the spiritual needs of the people of Littlemore had long gone unattended. Newman loved Littlemore and its inhabitants. Regularly talking about Littlemore's problems in his journal, Newman wanted to see the quality of both worldly and spiritual life improved, and went on to establish, amongst other things, a school and a parish hall. First and foremost, however, he called for the church to be built, and for Littlemore to be made its own parish, as it is today. The wish for Littlemore to have its own church and priest to care for the people of the village was not granted until 7 years after Littlemore came under Newman's care. But on the 16th of July, 1835, Newman wrote to a friend,
"My chapel was begun yesterday, the architect beforehand reckoning on £650. So I hope I have got it at about the right sum."
Newman managed to raise the money for the building of the church by asking his friends and colleagues in Oxford and elsewhere for donations. Many of those who gave are listed on the wall by the font at the west end of the church today. Most impressive of all was the contribution made by the people of Littlemore themselves. No matter how large or small the donation, their names and the amounts given were faithfully recorded by Newman, even the children's tiny contributions. Newman's mother laid the foundation stone on the 21st of July, 1835, but she died in May 1836, 4 months before the building's consecration. A memorial to her can be seen on the north wall of the church. The consecration of the church building took place on the 22nd of September 1836. The original building was significantly smaller than it is today, and the building had a bellcot rather than the present tower. The interior was noted for its simplicity. The walls were whitewashed, the windows were largely plain glass, and the reredos, the decorative stonework behind the altar, was unpainted, matching the original stone altar. The original building stopped where the wooden screen stands today. The area beyond the screen, the choir stalls and the altar, was added 12 years later in 1848, along with the tower and the lich gate. One of the most striking features of the church interior is the impressive font lid. This, along with the pulpit canopy, was designed by F. H. Crosley and installed in 1911. Crosley also designed the wooden rood screen, which was also installed in 1911. However, the crucifixion scene on top was made in Oberammergau in Germany, but it did not reach Britain before the outbreak of war in 1914, and was stranded in Belgium until the end of the conflict. The design of Littlemore Church is so individual that it is one of a number of plans copied by Sophie Gray, the wife of the first Anglican Bishop of Cape Town. Mrs. Gray was responsible for the design of over 40 churches in South Africa in the mid-19th century, and is largely regarded as South Africa's first female architect. St. Mark's Church in George, South Africa, was consecrated in 1850. Although it has been extended over the years and is now St. Mark's Cathedral, the original Littlemore design can still be clearly seen. The parish of Littlemore owes its very existence to John Henry Newman's passion for serving the needs of the local community, and this continues to be an important concern for the congregation that meets in the building Newman has left to us. John Henry Newman was famed for the care he had for his parishioners, and even now the people of Littlemore Parish Church seek to show that same care to those who live in Littlemore today. St. Mary and St. Nicholas's continues to work in the wider community, with schools, local groups and other churches, as well as providing a place of worship and spiritual refreshment for all. The church building as it stands today is more than the building that Newman established. In continuing Newman's emphasis on community and care, the building and the church that meets in it will develop and change so as best to serve the needs of the local people. This is the continuation of Newman's great legacy. We finish with the community's prayer for Littlemore. Loving Lord, may your shining light fill the hearts of all who live and work in Littlemore. Amen.